We have a Cannon Kendal cooker model C60 EKK. The main oven no longer works, no heat and no fan. All else is fine. Is the fan or element at fault, or both?
Hi, I'm Daniel and I'll be helping you today. I've been repairing white goods for 20 plus years. And currently work for a well-known manufacturer. Is the timer clock set or is it flashing? Regards.
We have never set the timer and therefore it's not flashing. The problem only became apparent when we set the oven temperature and nothing happened.
Hi, I was just checking it was set as if it wasn't or flashing, then the oven won't work. When you turn the dial on for the oven, does the little red light come on the control panel? Regards.
Hi Daniel, both the oven light and the red control light work as normal. As I said, everything else seems normal except that there is no sign of heat in the bottom oven. Can't therefore be a problem with the thermostat, as then the oven would overheat.
Hi, okay, did you notice the fan motor had stopped running before lost its heat? As what can happen is the fan motor fails first, and then when you use it because the fan isn't working, it can cause the heater to overwork and cut out. So you may not have noticed the fan wasn't running, as this can happen until it takes the heater out. What you need to do is remove the back panel inside the oven and from there turn the fan motor by hand and make sure it turns okay. If it's stiff, then the motor will need to be replaced. Also then check the heater element and see if this is blown. Sometimes you can see where it's blown. But if not, then you need to remove the heater and test it for resistance. It should be about 30 ohms. So check them two out and see what you find and let me know. Regards.
Thanks for your suggestions, Daniel. The oven was working perfectly when last used, and when next switched on, nothing. There was absolutely no heat in the oven, so the fan hadn't failed. Before contacting you, I'd already checked for obvious problems. Fan revolves smoothly and no sign of overheating, i.e. discoloring of the element. As I was uncertain about the linkage between the fan and element, I disconnected the element and the fan didn't work, but I'm not sure whether this means that the fan is the problem. Any further thoughts? If the element has failed, would the fan stop working? Probably not. I think as disconnecting it as I have might allow the fan to start.
Hi, okay, didn't realize you had already checked all that. As to the element failing and stopping the fan, you are correct. This won't happen as it has its own supply from the thermostat. Now this fault is going to be either the thermostat or the thermal cutout. As the thermostat on this isn't just a basic thermostat. It has a selector switch built in, so it's a dual switch, so the thermostat part can work but the selector section can fail. But as I'm not sure if you have checked the thermal cutout, we will start with this. Looking on the back of the oven, you will find a small thermostat on the lower oven cavity at the back. You need to check this for continuity and see what you find. If faulty, then it will need to be replaced. But if that's okay, then it's looking like the thermostat is faulty, as that's all that's left in the main oven circuit, as it's only the main thermostat, fan motor, heater and thermal cutout. So check the thermal cutout and see what you find, and if that's fine, then it's looking like the main thermostat is the fault here. Regards.
Hi, thanks for your comments. As it's 9:10 p.m., I don't feel like getting on hands and knees tonight, so we'll check in the morning and respond. Best regards, Brian.
Hi, no worries, that's fine. I'm on the same time as yourself, as I'm in the UK as well. So if you need any more info, just get back to me. Regards.
Morning, Daniel. I've checked the lower stat with the oven switched on. There is power coming through on the yellow line but none on the red. Done this confirm that the stat needs replacing? I have to leave in 45 minutes and won't return until around 4 p.m. Regards, Brian.
Hi, okay, if Terry's nothing going through that stat then it's faulty. You can just check it by bypassing it. Join the two wires together and insulate them and turn the oven on. If the thermal cutout is faulty then the oven will then come on. Let me know what happens. Regards.
Hi, looks as if you've solved the problem, Daniel. The element immediately got hot and air was blowing, although strangely the visible fan blades weren't moving. However, I didn't leave the oven on after checking for heat. Perhaps if I do and the temperature rises, the fan will kick in. What do you think?
Hi, okay, the thermal cutout will need to be replaced. But as to the fan inside the oven should come on straightway. If it's not then you may have a faulty fan motor, but you did say the air was blowing around. If that's the case then it should be spinning round nicely. Regards.
Thanks, Daniel. I'll order a replacement stat and hope that the fan is okay. I'll also try now to leave the oven to reach a temperature inside and see if the fan then kicks in, but as you say at least air is blowing at the moment, so I'll keep my fingers crossed that I don't need an expensive fan. If it helps, I'll let you know later. Thanks for your help and patience, hope that I don't need any more. I'll close now with a happy rating. Brian. Sadly, my further efforts have revealed that the air that is blowing is in the top oven, which isn't a fan oven. With the stat bypassed, the top oven fan blows without the oven being switched on. The bottom oven doesn't heat. Now not even the element gets hot, but it did before. With stat bypass there is no power reaching the bottom oven fan, but when I reconnected the stat there was power on both sides of the fan, but it doesn't turn when I switch the oven on and there is no heat. The top oven no longer blows air and seems to be working as normal. What is going on? I seem to be back to square one. The top oven with stat connected is fine and there is no life in the bottom oven. With it disconnected, the top oven blows air without it being set to temperature and there is no heat now, and the fan doesn't work as there is no power to it. Getting a bit frustrated now. Brian.
Hi, okay, it must have been the cooling fan thermostat you bypassed. Do you see any more thermal cutouts on the back? Regards.
Hi, Daniel. I sent another email immediately after the one at 6:05 p.m., but it doesn't appear here, so I've no idea what happened to it. I won't waste time trying to recompose it. The important thing is I've found the answer. Although the oven door was firm on its hinges, the locking pin was slightly loose. No more than a couple of turns. It obviously switches the fan, and probably the element, off when the door is open to check food. Now it's tight, everything works perfectly including the top oven, with the stat connected of course. I posed one question for you. Although food seems to cook at the set temperature, I'm wondering if the stat is faulty as it still doesn't show live on both sides when the oven is running. Final thoughts, please.
Hi, okay, when you say it doesn't show live both side when it's running, which part do you mean? Regards.
The thermostat at the bottom left corner of the oven. I referred to it as the stat in my last email. It's the one that you asked me to bypass by connecting the two leads together. It didn't prove anything when I did because it was the switch operated by the oven door which was the root of the problem. However, I presume from your previous comments that, with the oven switched on, you would expect it current then to flow through on both sides, and it doesn't. So even though there has been no problem with cook temperatures, could the stat need replacing?
Hi, okay, I'm with you now. From what you said happened when you bypassed it, the cooling fan was running, so this is the cooling fan stat, which is a cut-in. So when it gets hot enough in there, it will cut in to turn the cooling fan on, and once cooled down it will cut out to stop the cooling fan. So it should only have 230V both sides when it's hot in there to turn the cooling fan on. Check that out and see what happens.
Sorry for the delay in responding to your last message. It doesn't matter whether the oven is hot or cold, there is no flow through the stat, i.e. it's live on one side only. However, as I have already stated, both ovens seem to be performing okay, so I'll leave things as they are. If I subsequently have problems, I'll try replacing it. Thanks again for your perseverance, even though, by accident, I found the cause of the problem myself. However, if I hadn't enlisted your help, I doubt that I would have done. I've already rated you and given a bonus, so you'll be pleased to know that you can now close the case. Brian.
If you have a home improvement or appliance question and want to chat with an expert, now visit justanswer.com/YTHI.